Most coaches have absolutely no idea why they're not booking enough sales calls. They think it's their content, they think it might be their offer. Most of you think you need more leads, but the truth is most coaches are guessing, and when you're guessing, you end up fixing the wrong problem. You post more content when the real issue is the fact you're not starting enough conversations with the followers you already have. You hire a new setter every few weeks when in reality people are falling off at the same part of the conversation. You just don't know that. Change your offer, even though the fact is that most people aren't even getting to your booking link. That's exactly why two coaches can have the exact same number of leads coming into their pipeline and have two different results. One will book 5 calls a week, the other one will book 25 a week consistently as well. And it's not because they have better leads, it's because they understand their numbers. In this video, I'll show you the 4 DM metrics that every single online coach should be tracking. How to identify exactly where people are falling off in your sales process, and how to know what to fix before you spend time, money, and effort trying to fix the wrong problem. Before we get into the metrics themselves, I want you to imagine this. You've got a bucket that's supposed to collect water. Every day you're pouring more and more water into it, but somehow it never fills up. So what do most people do? They keep pouring more water in. But that's a terrible solution if the bucket has holes in it. No matter how much water you add, the bucket's never going to fill. And that sounds stupid and obvious, but that's exactly what most of you coaches are doing with your leads. Constantly trying to post more content, get more followers, more traffic, more eyeballs, more people into the DM, but you never stop to ask an important question. Where actually is the leak? Because every book call follows the same process. You get the prospect into the DMs, the conversation progresses, the booking link gets sent, and they book. If bookings are lower than they should be, somewhere along the line, something is leaking. There is a hole somewhere. You just don't know where because, again, you don't track those metrics. But these 4 metrics will show you exactly where. Number 1, how many conversations are actually starting? It's the metric that will tell you how many people are actually entering your sales process. Because if nobody's replying, nothing else matters. And this is where I see most of you coaches making a massive mistake. You'll tell me that you're not booking enough calls, but when we look at the numbers, we realise that hardly anyone is even replying to your outreach or sending inbound DMs in the first place. At that point, you don't have a booking problem, you don't have a qualification problem, you have a conversation starting problem. Think about it like a gym. I'm sure some of you are fitness coaches. If nobody walks through the door, it doesn't matter how good the equipment is or how good the trainers are. And in your case, it doesn't matter how good your DM setting process is. If you gained 100 followers today and only 10 to 15 are actually ended up in your DMs, whether that's you outreaching to them or you getting inbound DMs, then, well, you have a problem. Whether it be with your content, your outreach message, or both, you're not getting people engaged in them. Maybe you're not creating enough curiosity. Maybe you're targeting the wrong people. Maybe there's something wrong with your outreach message itself. But whatever it is, now you know where to look because you have it tracked. Compared to the next coach who gets 100 followers and at least 30 to 40 people are ended up in his DMs. That's about where it should be. If it's even higher than that, great. But if we know those numbers, we know whether the entry rate is healthy or not. We can now move further down the process and see if there's any leads there. The amount of conversations they're actually starting should be the first thing that you track, because there's no point looking at the rest of them if you're not having enough people come through the sales process in the first place. And it will also help tell you if you're doing well later on down the process as well. I'll explain that soon. Number 2, your biggest conversation drop-off point. Most coaches will look at it and say, this person ghosted me, or a lot of people are ghosting me. But that's not what the real question should be. That's not useful at all. The real question should be, where did they ghost you? Because if a lot of people are falling off at a certain point, that will tell you exactly what needs fixing. Say you get a reply out of someone, then you ask them about their goals, they reply to that. You ask them about their motivation, then they reply to that. But then you ask them about their struggle or what's holding them back. They don't reply to that. If that's happening consistently and you can see it because it's tracked, then you know that something has to change within that part of the process, that question. And all of a sudden, that becomes very useful information. Imagine 100 people enter your conversation. 80 people answer question 1, 70 answer question 2, 60 maybe answer question 3. I don't know, I'm just coming up with this on the spot. Question 4, only 20 reply to it, then you know where the problem is. Something about that 4th question is causing friction, is causing them to fall off. It might be confusing, it might be too aggressive, it might be asked at the wrong point in the conversation. But the point is, now you know where to investigate. You're not just guessing anymore. It shouldn't really happen, but let's imagine that most people are opening up to you throughout the conversation, but then as soon as you mention coaching and you start pitching them, then they fall off. Then you can identify that problem as well. Maybe you're pitching them too early. Maybe you haven't built up enough urgency throughout the rest of the conversation. Maybe you haven't been human enough throughout the rest of the conversation and they feel like they're just being taken for a sales pitch. But without tracking these things, you just assume that they're not interested, despite the fact that they've had a conversation with you up to that point. And with this data, you can create an actual framework, because a framework will create consistency. Whereas if you're guessing every conversation, well, that's just going to create random results and complete inconsistency, which I know is the last thing you want. One of the best things you can do is look through your last 20, 30, or even up to 100 DM conversations. Ask yourself, where are people disappearing and ghosting you most often? I guarantee you'll notice a pattern, and once you can identify that pattern, then well, you can start thinking of solutions. You can start figuring out why they're falling off of that part of the conversation, and you can make the changes that need to be made. Now, assuming that the conversations are progressing properly, we move on to metric number 3, which is booking links sent. This metric will tell you how many people are actually making it to the invitation stage, how many people are actually reaching the point where you're comfortable enough inviting them onto a call. And this metric will always surprise people because they think they're having a ton of conversations, which they are, but hardly any booking links are being sent. 80 people have replied to you, but only 2 of them have got through to being sent a link. Immediately you're going to know that something before the call invitation is going wrong. Not enough people are making it all the way to the end, even though they are engaging. And that could be because you're taking too long to move the conversation forward. You might be qualifying too aggressively. You might be getting stuck in endless chatting. You might not be building up enough urgency, like I said before. But if that number is low, you don't have a booking problem in itself. You have a transition problem. You're not moving conversations into opportunity, not often enough anyway. And that brings us to the final metric, which you're probably tracking, but you're probably not tracking it right. How many bookings are you getting? This is the one that everyone should be paying attention to. It's the easiest and most obvious one. And understandably so, it's the outcome we're all waiting for. But here's the mistake. Most of you online coaches are looking at how many bookings you got this week and stopping there. You got 5, you got 10, you got 25, whatever. But that number on its own doesn't actually tell you that much. Because the bookings only make sense when you're comparing them to the other numbers. Links sent, how many conversations are started, like I mentioned before. That's how that first metric ties in. Because if you can see that you started 1,000 conversations and only 10 people booked, then you can see a problem straight away. If you sent 50 booking links this week but only 5 of them booked, then again, there's a problem straight away. Don't just take the booking number on its own, compare it to the other numbers and see if what you're getting is actually healthy. Immediately, by tracking these numbers, you'll know something important. People are making it through the conversation, reaching the point where they're being sent a booking link, you're inviting them onto a call, but something happens where they're not committed. Most of the time, it's a conversation quality problem. Think about it like this. If someone has 20 minutes to tell you all about their goals, their motivation, their pain, why exactly they need to do this right now, etc, etc. Booking a call should be a natural next step. It shouldn't be a big decision. It should be obvious, but when conversations stay surface level, it's not that easy. It's not that obvious to them. They answer a few questions, they don't feel like they're actually involved in a human conversation, they receive a booking link, but because there was no value or urgency or even authority built up within the conversation, they don't feel like they need to book on this call. It feels optional rather than obvious. This is why I always say the goal of qualification isn't just to collect information. The goal is to help the prospect fully understand their own situation. The more clarity they have around the problem and the more vision they have towards fixing it, the easier it becomes to actually commit to fixing it. And that's why these bookings are such an important metric. Compared with the other metrics, they will tell you if these conversations are building up enough urgency, desire, authority, these sorts of things. And there's one more thing worth mentioning when it comes to tracking the amount of bookings you're getting. Even great conversations don't always lead to instant booking. People get distracted, they forget about things. That happens. They might not book straight away. Most people should if it's actually been a good conversation, but some people still won't. That's why follow-up matters so much. Follow-up will always work best when the conversation was actually strong, they just haven't yet taken action because they haven't had the time or they forgot or whatever. When your bookings are low, ask yourself 2 questions. First, are the conversations creating enough conviction for someone to actually see the call as the obvious next step? And are you consistently following up with the people that haven't yet booked? I want personalised follow-ups from you lot as well. Don't be sending everyone the same copy and paste message that says, did you book yet? Are you still interested? Mention something that they already said within the conversation and pull it back in from there. And again, you can only do that if the conversation was actually good and they gave you quite a lot. But improving either of those things can have a huge impact on the amount of calls that end up on your calendar. High quality calls as well. And when you put all 4 of these metrics together, something interesting happens. You stop bloody guessing. Instead of saying, I think my content is the problem, I think the leads are the problem, I think this part of the conversation is the problem. You know all of it because the numbers will always tell the story. Replies will tell you if people are even entering the conversation. Drop-off points will tell you where they're breaking up. Booking links will tell you how much conversations are progressing. Bookings themselves will tell you if people are actually taking action. And once you know where the leak is, fixing it becomes a whole lot easier.